Let's take it from the start. The president of a nation fighting for its very survival walks into the most powerful office on the earth, not as a beggar, not as an ally, but in his mind as a partner. He leaves humiliated.
Mr. President, is there no deal? Mr. President.
Donald Trump, in front of rolling cameras, told Zelensky something that reverberated across every war room, every parliament, every place on the planet.
Of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having
not
cards.
playing cards.
But right now, you don't.
Very
You're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're playing
very
cards.
serious.
The message was clear. Ukraine had nothing to offer. Ukraine was a charity case. Except after 1 year, all the leaders of Saudi Arabia, UAE and Qatar and all the richest nations of the world lined up to meet Zelensky, not the other way around. This is a story of how a country that was once told it had no cards ended up holding an entire hand, and how a war of 1,000 miles away in the Middle East became Ukraine's greatest opportunity. Let's go back in 2022. Russia just invaded Ukraine and it is outgunned, outmanned and outspent. And the West? Well, the West had conditions, limitations, red lines. Ukraine at that time needed air defense desperately, but the weapons coming in were expensive, slow to arrive and politically complicated. Patriot missiles, HIMARS, all powerful, yet all tied to the political strings. And then there were drones. Ukraine's first attempts were almost embarrassing, literally strapping explosive to the kind of a quadcopter you would buy online. No precision, no scale, no doctrine. This became the inflection point where Ukraine's greatest weakness became its greatest strength, because nobody was going to save them, not completely, not unconditionally. And when you are in a fight for your survival and no one hands out a lifeline, you build one for yourself. Okay, business people, it is time to get serious. You are running a business and you are not generating a potential revenue or collecting leads, or your business is in crisis. Then there are two things that you need to do urgently. First, realize that slowing business becomes a norm if it is not addressed quickly. And second, you need to call in experts, because the time at which you should have reached out was yesterday. And we expertise by helping businesses through crisis by our cut-throat digital marketing skills and advanced AI. But here's the thing, we are dead serious people and we are passionate, possessed with our work. So you understand, we don't have the patience for the BS. So if you're serious about actually doing business, then only you should reach out to us by the button below. Remember, there is a chance we might have to say no to you if you don't resonate with our commitment and dedication, because anything less is an insult to both you and us. The Trump movement in the Oval Office wasn't just a political embarrassment, it was a signal, a brutal public signal that Ukraine could not count on America's backing indefinitely and that they were on their own. And so they did something remarkable and something out of a necessity. They got to work. Ukraine set a target that almost sounded delusional at that time: 7 million drones a year. Stay with that for a second. 7 million.
We have already contracted 1 million drones for this year, and more will follow in total within the year. We are not disclosing all the details now, but our drone production capabilities are steadily increasing, and we are working not only with the state funding, but also with partners so that they invest in our drone production.
For context, Russia had been bombing Ukraine with Iranian-made Shahed drones since the start of the war. Nearly 60,000 Shahed fired at Ukraine cities and infrastructure. Wave after wave, night after night. Ukraine couldn't possibly afford to shoot all them down with expensive Western missiles. A single Patriot interceptor cost up to 4 million per shot. The drone it's killing may be 20,000 to 50,000 max to build. That is 200 to 1 cost mismatch. You cannot win a war on those economics, not for long. So Ukraine asked itself a radical question. What if instead of using expensive missiles to kill cheap drones, we use cheap drones to kill the cheap drones? Welcome to the new Ukraine Arsenal era. The Sting, a quadcopter of the size of a large thermos with thermal imaging, hunts at night, cost about $2,500, engineered specifically to intercept Iranian Shaheds drones. You want to see more? Meet the Octopus. Chases targets over 300 kilometers per hour, auto targeting, resistant to signal jamming, cost around $3,000. Next, meet the Bullet. Jet powered, its part can be 3D printed, built for under $2,000 a piece. These weren't just prototype toys. Ukraine was producing them at thousands per day and training the entire unit to operate them in coordinated swarms, fused into radar feeds, early warning network, real-time command systems. By February 26, Ukraine drone army was responsible for 70% of confirmed Shahed-type drone kills in Kyiv region. 70%, not missile, not jets, drones, cheap drones, they're indigenous drones. But here's where the story gets truly interesting. Because while Ukraine was mastering this technology in the cold field of Eastern Europe, something was happening 3,000 kilometers away that would change everything.
To the great proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered, don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take.
In the Persian Gulf in early 2026, Iran war with the US and Israel has escalated beyond anyone's initial projections. Hundreds of Shahed drones, the same weapon that Russia has been firing at Ukraine, are now being launched directly by the Iran and Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Jordan. And here's the cruel irony. These Gulf nations are amongst the wealthiest countries on earth. They have American-made Patriot system, hard batteries, sophisticated radar networks. Their air defense are on paper some of the most advanced in the world. Yet, still, it doesn't matter because math is not working for it anymore. The United Arab Emirates alone have claimed to shot down nearly 2,000 Iranian drones since the start of the war. At 4 million per Patriot shot, even if they used one Patriot against one drones, which is not always the case, that's $8 billion spent defending against drones that costed Iran a fraction of a percentage of its annual defense budget. One Iranian Shahed drones cost about $20,000 to $50,000. One Patriot interceptor up to $4 million. The ratio is 200 to 1. Here is the incident for you. On March 27, an Iranian strike hit Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia, damaging several US aircraft on ground. A valuable E-3 Sentry, AWACS command, and a control plane was destroyed at the tarmac. At least 10 early warning radars used by the US and the Gulf nations to defend against the Iranian strikes have been hit. According to the New York Times, many of the 13 US military bases in the region are, quote, all uninhabitable. Let that sink in for a second. The most powerful military on earth rendered essentially homeless in its own regional bases by drones that cost up to the price of a used car. The Gulf states are desperately desperate. They have the money, they have the infrastructure, but they lack one thing you cannot buy off the shelf: experience. Thousands of hours of real, live, battle-tested experience fighting exactly the kind of the threat, and there's only one country on earth that has it. March 2026, Zelensky, the same man Donald Trump publicly humiliated in the Oval Office just months earlier, is now touring the Gulf, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, not as a supplicant asking for the weapons, but as a seller. Ukraine has already deployed 228 specialists to 5 Middle Eastern countries, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, and Jordan, to help intercept Iranian drones and advise on air defense. Zelensky himself put it plainly, I believe no one has experience comparable to ours. And he's right. Ukraine has spent 4 years defending against a wave of Shaheds. They have built an entire integrated architecture, radar feeds, early warning system, command and control, all fused into a single real-time platform, all oriented around one thing: killing cheap drones cheaply. The Gulf states have money to buy the Patriot missiles, but not the mat to sustain it. Ukraine has the answer, and now they have something else too: leverage. Remember when Trump said Ukraine had no cards? Ukraine has now signed defense cooperation framework agreements with Saudi Arabia and Qatar. A deal with UAE is reportedly under works. Zelensky is now negotiating a drone cooperation package with the United States worth up to $50 billion, where Ukraine would share its drone innovations in exchange for American investments. The country that was once told it was a charity case now is setting up the terms. But this isn't a clean victory lap. There are complications, and real ones too. Ukraine's drone sector, in the words of its CEO, is chomping at the bit. Companies like Wild Hornets, Skyfall, and U-Force, makers of a Sting, Magura, Sea Drones, and others, have been flooded with inquiries from the Middle Eastern buyers. And yet, they can't say yes, not yet. And here's a problem for you. Ukraine officially opened up the weapons export license process in February 2026, and on March 2nd, barely 3 weeks later, the export process to Middle Eastern countries was de facto suspended after an unnamed Ukraine security service sent a letter to the defense manufacturers telling them to pause. The State Service for Exports Control publicly, of course, denied any suspension that has been ordered, but manufacturers have received the letters. That uncertainty is real. There's a deeper tension here. Every weapon Ukraine export is a weapon that won't be on the ground for Ukraine front lines. The state priority is clear: defend Ukraine first. But industry figures warn that if Ukraine moves too slowly, the moment will pass. As one executive put it, there's a risk of losing the moment because the international market does not wait. Ukraine's drone industry CEO estimates exports could reach $2 billion this year, potentially scaling to $10 billion annually within 5 years. That money could fund Ukraine's post-war reconstruction, scale up productions, and can create world-leading defense industry. But the window is open as long as the war in Iran keeps going. And there's one more twist, a big one. Here is something that mainstream coverage media keeps on missing. The Iranian war isn't just a Middle Eastern conflict. It is quietly becoming another front in Russia-Ukraine war. Let's trace the connections. Russia has a long-standing alliance with Iran. Putin reportedly have been providing Iran with satellite imagery and drones. And there is also strong evidence that Russian satellites have been imaging US and UK military bases in the Gulf, helping Iran target them with devastating precision, which has no satellites of its own.
They share these drones with the Iranians, and then they use these satellites and share, and then Iranians attack bases of UK, United States, or Middle East partners of the United States, by the way.
You believe Russia is actively helping Iran target American forces in the Middle East right now?
How else could Iran, which has no satellites of its own, strike with such accuracy? Meanwhile, the US is spending billions of dollars in the Gulf, burning through the Patriot interceptor and THAAD missile that could otherwise be available for sale to Ukraine. So if we say it, Russia wins twice. Iran bleeds American resources and Ukraine gets fewer weapons. Ukraine has also launched drone strike targeting Russian oil infrastructure, cutting Russia's oil shipping capacity reportedly by 40%. Less oil revenue means less money for Russian war machine. And now Zelensky is arming the very Gulf state that Russia's ally is attacking. Every Ukrainian interceptor drone that shot down an Iranian Shahed is a direct blow to Russia's strategic partner. Every petrodollar that flows from Saudi Arabia or the UAE into Ukraine defenses industry is a money that strengthens Russia's enemy. Both Russia and Ukraine are deliberately using this conflict thousands of miles from their own front lines to hurt each other. The Iran war has become a proxy war between Moscow and Kiev, and almost no one is saying it out loud. So, what does the future look like? Iran knows what Ukraine is doing, and it is already declared Ukraine as a legitimate target for lending its expertise to America's Middle East allies. That means the country that is fighting a war with Russia is now simultaneously declared an enemy of Iran. Ukraine is fighting on two fronts, one physical and one geopolitical. And somehow, against all the odds, it is winning both. The Gulf states are now realizing that their expensive missile-heavy air defense system cannot survive the economic of drone warfare indefinitely. They desperately need what Ukraine has. And Ukraine also has made the calculation that arming the Gulf is worth the risk, because the funding and the geopolitical credibility it earns may be what keeps the Ukraine alive after any ceasefire. A year ago, a humiliated president was told that he has no cards. Today, his country is supplying the frontline technology in a war it's not officially fighting, in a region it has no historical ties to, and is reshaping the global arms market in the process. The drones that was once cobbled together with a duct tape and a consumer quadcopter is now a precision interceptor, mass-produced at thousands per day, combat tested across the thousands of hours, and sold to the kings and the crown princes. And the war isn't over, either of them. Ukraine's drones export could reshape the global defense for decades, but the window is closing fast. What happens if Kiev moves too slowly or too quickly? That's all for today. Thank you for seeing this video till the end. Also, please like, share and subscribe. Your subscription gives us the motivation to continue. And also please leave your comment and your feedback in the comment box. See you soon.